of 2023 confirmed by the Moon Boys, Bitcoin right now is dangling at key resistance in an attempt to turn it into ultimate giga support before what will surely be the biggest and potentially last mega bull run to make you a billionaire confirmed. But after completing this massive bust from under 27,000 to above 30,000, is Bitcoin in store for a backtest, retest, reach around surprise alert? Or are the bulls injecting juice straight into their donks in an attempt to lift the price even higher big time? Only one thing is for sure. This is big. Right now the price of Bitcoin continues to hold right around, a little under, a little above, depending on where you're looking at it, right around the $30,000 level. And after completely busting and reaching the target of the breakout we've been watching for, the past couple of weeks, above 30,000. Are things about to ramp up here? Big time immediately? Or is it possible we have a little bit of a backtest, retest, pit stop before initiating potentially the biggest bust, and as I like to call it, the final true bust of 2023. So as you can see, we initiated and we completed our short-term bust out. This is about a 2.5 month long bust. Consolidation that we have achieved the bust here. But now, obviously, if we go to the longer term chart and look at a year-long pattern, the inverse head and shoulder, this can, in my opinion, still bring us above 40,000 US dollars. But what many people always seem to forget is that it's not a straight shot up. In fact, let's look at what that would look like if it was. This is very exciting, actually. If Bitcoin did just go right here and went straight up to 40K, it would look something like this. That's pretty crazy. Now, I'm not saying it cannot happen. However, it's not necessarily the most likely thing. And, if we get a back test, I'm going to talk about some specific levels that I think make sense, retest, but also, more importantly than anything, what I've been saying and what I said specifically in the last video was I wanted to see a couple daily closes above 30K. I think is probably the most important thing. So yesterday we did get a close right, I think it was pretty much like literally exactly on 30K. Yesterday's candle closed like almost exactly at 30K. And what I would want to see is at least 2 to 3 days of closes above 30K. And ultimately, what's only 2 to 3 days away is the weekly close. So if we get a weekly candle close above 30K, that can be very, very big, very good. But even if we don't, I still think that a $40,000 breakout over the next month or so is possible. In fact, likely. Even if we don't get this weekly close above 30K. It really depends on how the price action shapes up. But ultimately, where we've gone so far is right very close to the highs that we set back at the beginning or the middle of April. So we do want to see Bitcoin have a bust, ideally for me, even if it's only for an hour, above that. So I'm interested in seeing that. But this is just like a rough idea of what I think many people on each one of these little dips would think, okay, yeah, see, I told you it was a bull trap. But that's absolutely not at all the case, in my opinion. So if we saw a structure like this that would, maybe complete even within the next 2 months, and bring us all the way above 40K, is that a realistic scenario for me? Absolutely, I think so. I think that makes perfect sense. And let's say we do some of this. We have the halving right about here-ish, and let's say, as we go into the halving, again, that kind of structure, just a rough idea, is something that I also see this on Twitter a lot. I see it on YouTube also, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Now, honestly, it does worry me a little bit the more people that I see post that exact same thing, because as we all know, the more people agree on something, probably the less likely it is to happen in terms of technical analysis. I mean, remember, everybody was convinced 10,000 and below is coming. We went down to 15K, didn't happen. Remember, everyone was convinced 100K was coming. We got up right to about 70K, or specifically 69K. Nice. And then we didn't go to 100K. So usually when there's a massive consensus, and that's like the main narrative, such as 100K, such as 10K, neither of them will happen. And so in the very short term, that's why I'm talking about those possibilities of what I think is likely, especially in the short term, and then also the medium term, so like 2 months, and then longer term, which is like 6+ months in my view. But also, if we look on this 5-day chart with Bitcoin, as you can see, again, our very first touch is above this channel, which this channel is basically between 30.5 and 24.5, about a $6,000 range where we spent, where we've been in since the beginning of March. Okay, so almost coming up on like 3.5 months or so, or 4 months. Breaking out of this range is very important for Bitcoin. And every time we had a touch on this blue line right here, the MMI, Bitcoin has initiated a very big move very shortly after, right? Look at every single touch here. It's been kind of like where the big pivots in Bitcoin happen. So with that being said, I don't necessarily think this move is over, but I do absolutely want to see, I think there's going to be a lot of volatility, obviously. This is our biggest resistance of the entire bear market, for pizza's sake. Look at this. This is the entire bear market. This is the entire last few years. This is by far the biggest area. It was the biggest where the lowest we went during the bull market and bounced, and we found massive support here. It's just a very big level. And to think that if we don't breach through 30K the second we get up to it, or the second time we get up to it, to think that that's a really bad sign is not. This by all accounts should be a pretty hard resistance. And if we're able to concretely break above 30K, chances are, if we actually are able to cement above 30K, break up to 35, even have a back test, then come back to 30K and hold that over the next few months, then I would say that might you might never ever get anything below 30K again. Now, never say never, because we all know how that works out for everyone that said everything over the past couple of years, right? A lot of people said both ways. We'll never hit these prices to the upside or downside ever again. Usually when you say that, it's not the best thing to do that. However, all I'm saying is concretely flipping 30K is a big deal. And just because we go above it for a day or two, that's awesome. But what I'm talking about is more of a more long-term concrete busting of 30K, meaning we get above 30K, we pump majorly above it, and then we even have a big dump and hold 30K and then trend upwards. So that in itself, it takes obviously weeks and weeks of more price action for something like that to happen. But again, our very first touches here is huge, and obviously we do want to avoid any type of double top scenario, but we do have really good structure put in here. Low, or ultimate low, much higher low, much higher low. And if Bitcoin's able to break here and even go to the mid-30s over the next week or so, that would be insanely bullish constructive price action that I'm looking for as well. And on the 30-day chart, we all know a lot of this momentum on the longer term time frames has changed, and that's why one of the reasons that I'm very confident long term. This, to me, if I would illustrate the bear market, this is what I would illustrate. This, to me, encapsulates the entire bear market. January 2022 until about May of 2023. If we look back and say a couple months and we do something like this, and then we go on to the next bull market, everybody will say, yes, well, this was the entire bear market. All I'm saying is I'm trying to call it a little early, but it also makes the most sense to me. And it also sits right underneath the 50 moving average on this chart, which is the only time we've really gone concretely above it in any past previous bear markets, right? In previous bear markets, we had little dips below the purple, here, back in 2019, back in 2015. But ultimately, this one has been way more dumpy. We've spent like months. We've had basically almost an entire year below this moving average. And now we're above it, and we're above the also 21 moving average on this chart for the very first time also since March of 2022. So like 13 months, very first time in 13 months. So obviously there's some constructive price action with Bitcoin. If we look here, we have massive levels of support to the downside as well. So if we get a pullback, which will be inevitable, right? Always. If you're new to the markets, again, people think price only goes up. I'm here to tell you that's not the case. Even in bull markets, price goes down and back tests. We're not in a bull market yet. Again, as I said yesterday, I think we're in that in-between period where it's kind of gray. Technically, you can call it a bull market, and technically you can call it a bear market. I think we're in that gray area where the bear is switching to bull. So you can kind of call it either. But obviously 28,000, I think, 22,000 to 23, or more so 23,000, massive at 20,000 support, massive at about 16,000 support. Look at all the volume at some of these levels. So let's say we get big dumps. We have a lot of support underneath us. And so I do think it's possible that we actually just continue this move up over the next few days. And that's what I would think would be the best situation. In fact, if we look in previous bust outs, for example here, right, back in March, This is the most similar thing to our current breakout that we see on this chart right now. Here, had a pit stop for a few days, and then continued bust, right? And what was before that? Exact same thing. Massive bust, pit stop for a few days, and then continued. Then we had this like sneaky dump, and then so that type of price action so far actually of 2023 has been exactly what's happened. So if I would base what's going to happen on what's happened so far during these breakouts of 2023, what I would tell you is, well, we have a breakout, sideways, continued breakout, breakout, sideways, continued breakout. Here is the breakout, and then maybe some sideways for a couple days, and then continue breakout. I'm not saying that's exactly what's going to happen 100%. All I'm saying is if I would compare our current breakout to all the other two we've had, or the other two we've had so far the first 6 months of 2023, then that's a reasonable scenario to expect Bitcoin to do. And also, we held on this absolutely insane, very key moving average right here. It's just so important that Bitcoin holds, and we spent months trading right on top of it in a bust here. So that gives me some hope there. And right, as you can see, 30,000 is kind of what we're trying to hold right here. You can see this has been the past about 24 hours since we first broke here, and the price is just glued to this line. So exciting to watch, exciting to see. If ultimately it can hold, we can have a nice push up higher and have a continued breakout in the short term. To take advantage of massive trading and sign up bonuses, if you sign up with my link to Femex below, you can earn free XPT and also massive welcome and deposit bonuses with Femex and BitGet below. Without further ado, it's free.